turn 1, fourth gear. As you cross the start-finish line, begin your turn-in, and aim for the end of the wall that's halfway up the hill on exit. Try to carry a constant arc that will carry you past the bridge, and don't track out further than halfway or about 2/3 of the track. As you pass the end of the pit lane exit, the track has some significant banking before beginning a steep climb. If you haven't mistakenly put the car all the way to the right, you can use that banking at the beginning. Further, the steep climb and heavy compression will allow the car to turn in more than you would think. It's a lot like the uphill at Lime Rock. The ideal line will have you completing your arc parallel to the entry curve for turn 2. You'll see later on that I turned in too early and too much here. There's a bump about halfway up the hill that can overload the right front tire late in the corner, so you need to be prepared to open the steering when you hit it. Full throttle all the way up. See the bend in the radius of the curb to my left? As I pass it, I want to be finished with my steering and unwinding the wheel and point it at the 6th tree from the right and not the 3rd tree like I am here. You can see I'm about a car width too far to the left and pointed too far to the right. This will compromise my entry into the right-hand portion of turn 2. As I pass that kink in the curb, I start braking and drop quickly down to 3rd. Ideally, I'd have started my braking a car's length or a half later, but that early turn in through turn 1 started this compromise. There's a little bit of banking in my favor before the corner goes heavily off camber, so I will use that to help the car to rotate at turn in. This is a little more curb than I'd like to take. Too much of this curb will overload the left side tires and cause the right rear to spin under throttle. I'm not worrying about some wheel spin, but too much will bog me down. My head is up and looking at the end of the spectator stands. If I draw a line from the pole at the top of the hill to the 2 corners of the spectator tiers, it'll connect to the end of the curbing at track out, which I obviously can't see now. Turn 3, fourth gear. Again, the climb and compression here will allow you to take a faster and tighter line than you might normally expect. Normally, the left-hand turn requires you to come off the throttle maybe as much as halfway. I'm not sure why I decided to go flat this time. I made it work, but I missed the apex in 3 by a couple of feet, and I was too far to driver's right for 3A. As I exit 3, I want to be pointed to the left of the speaker pole that's left of the blue building on the hill. Turn 3A, fourth gear. It is possible to go through this corner without braking. With the baseline setup, I can't seem to unbind the front without some brake, so brake I do. Some throttle will keep the car from oversteering down to apex. I managed to find a state here where I needed the throttle to keep from spinning, but the car was understeering. A bizarre sensation to be sure. My eyes are up, looking for the speaker pole that will become visible on the backside of the hill. This pole is in line with the track out point. Try not to use as much grass as I did. I'm not sure how I didn't spin or get an off-course penalty. Turn 4, third gear. I know some drivers are using second, but that's too low a gear for me in this corner. Use the curb on braking and start braking about a car's length to half a length before the end of the curb. The descent will cause the car to tend to oversteer, so use throttle to keep the car in balance. This is more than a 90-degree corner, so make sure you slow down enough. This is a real trouble spot for me. Try to continue this arc through most of turn 5. Turn 6, fourth gear. RPM wise, this corner is the third gear corner about halfway through, but because of the entry speed, I prefer to stay in fourth. If you find yourself spinning on downshift, you're probably over revving the engine, so downshift later or stay in fourth gear. There are really 2 ways to enter this corner. One is a longer, softer braking zone as you crest the hill, and the other is a harder brake with more entry speed as I did on this lap. I prefer the former to the latter as it's easier to control the car's yaw on entry, I'm less likely to lock the left front, and I'm easier on the right front through the middle of the corner. Both techniques take about the exact same amount of time to the 100th for me in this sector, but the latter does make it more difficult for me to reach the apex as I'm struggling with the right front not wanting to turn more. Here you can see I did miss the apex. When you can see the curbing on the inside, you should be at full throttle. The compression at the bottom of the hill will allow the car to turn more. Turn 7. I prefer third gear through this complex, though some use second for the whole thing, and some use second for 7A. It's down to your preference, obviously. Brake about halfway between the red and the black signs. Track out should have you parallel to the white line as you pass the second to last pylon. (7A). There is a depression in the track to the left of the yellow line and a bump to the left of the white line, so if you're over here before turn-in for 7A, expect oversteer at turn-in. Soft, smooth braking and return to power. Be at full throttle before apex. The track falls away a little after apex, so the car will pick up some understeer. Turns 8 and 8A, flat and fourth gear. I have noticed that after a couple of laps, tire wear might require me to lift slightly for 8. The track descends slightly after the apex at 8, so you won't be able to get any more turning done. Be smooth on the transition to 8A, as it's possible to spin the car by transitioning too abruptly. If you go up to 5th on the straight, try not to miss your shift. It's always embarrassing and infuriating. Turn 9, second gear. The braking zone begins just on the other side of the small bump in the track. There aren't really any good reference points, so use the mini light poles to key a sight picture for yourself. Try not to be so focused on acquiring marks or watching the car ahead of you that you forget to brake. If you do go long in braking, then get the car sorted out in a straight line, go through the tires, come to a complete stop, check F3, rejoin sensibly, and the cut course penalty should clear about the time you get back up to speed. You'll have lost a minimum of time and won't have spun on entry into 9 or looped into the wall on the outside. The corner is a late apex, later than I am here, and then it's immediate transition to the left. There's a big bump on the curb on the inside for the left, and you can see my car get unsettled over it, and if you hit that bump too hard, it will spin you. Turn 11, second gear. Brake about the end of the curb. You can cut an enormous amount of the corner. It seems iRacing won't give you a penalty as long as the left side tires touch the curbing at apex. I seem to be constitutionally incapable of cutting the corner for whatever reason, even when I'm deliberately trying to, like I did on this lap. There's a depression in the track right at turn-in, so it's easy to get the car to over-rotate pretty quickly. Don't jump on the throttle too hard, as wheel spin is a concern on launch.